Dr. Narendra Singh is a research assistant professor from SUSTEC. His research is focused around recycling of e-waste, life cycle analysis, and development of techniques for the recovery of precious metals from e-waste. He will be sharing his thoughts on preventing petrochemical plastic pollution and sustainable industry. Audience, sure.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Abdul Qadir for inviting me here to share my work and experience working on plastic here in China. And I hope that it will be helpful for Pakistani scenario of plastic production and how to sustainably manage all the plastics. So here in this webinar, I'm going to talk about preventing petrochemical plastic pollution and sustainable alternatives. As we already heard from the two speakers that plastic pollution is a global and also local problem. And it's a big problem. It's a very confusing problem. It's very hard to solve that because of the non-degradable of the plastic natures. So we had to find out something to solve this problem. There is only two ways to solve. First, to not use, as first speaker suggests us to that plastic is not very convenient, but that's their personal view. So another option is to change the material of the plastics. So this is only 50-50 chance for two. There is no other options. Whatever we talk about that or recycling or other thing, it's very hard to imagine in the practical life. So whether not to use or use, when we use, then we need to find out solution or to replace the material which is made from the plastic. So I will talk in detail in my next slide. First of all, I would like to let you all know that what I'm going to talk about here, plastic demand and the global house gas emission globally, I will talk. And also it could be related to the Pakistani scenarios. Then I will talk about the source of plastic. That's very much important to understand. It's for everyone to know that how plastic are made and what materials being used for making plastic and how it's end up. Then third point, I'm going to talk about the potential bio-based substitution of plastics. All of might have heard that bioplastic, everyone talk about bioplastic, but it's very confusing and misleading terms. We need to understand what is bioplastic and how the plastic are biodegradable or non-biodegradable. I will talk about that too. And at the end, I will talk about how sustainable to manage plastic with different scenarios which have been used around the world. So the first, we have to understand how big the problem is. Here in this graph, we can see that there is a graph A and B. The first one, like saying the plastic production from 1980 to 2050 predicted values. So we are at 2020. Here we can see almost 400 million tons of plastic have been produced with different types of plastic. Most majorly 5 types of plastic are very popular, like PE and PVC, PP, PS, and other types of plastic that's less than 30% or 25%. 70% of plastic are majorly part of these 5 types of plastic. So these are divided and have been predicted. So in the next graph, we can see that how much global warming or CO2 emissions will continue to global warming. That will be almost 3 times if we compare from the current. That's the huge. It's only for that figure only tells us how much CO2 emission or it will impact global warming, not about toxicity and how it's going to affect social economic lifestyle, as the first 2 speakers have showed that the plastic have been discarded badly manner and it is affecting human life and also toxic impacts. So here in this figure, we're talking about only CO2 emission. So to understand how it is contributing to the global emission and global CO2 emission, that also need to go back to understand how it is made of. So, okay, before that, we also have found some information about Pakistanis, how much they are produced, in Pakistan, how much plastic are produced. So here, I think is a UNDP Pakistan, some ACC lab Pakistan have counted that we produce about 3.3 million tons of plastic every year in Pakistan. That's a huge amount. And also he has compared with the K2 mountain to like 2 times off. That's a huge amount. So what we have to do to think about this plastic, how it has been made, or to how to sustainably manage, that's the key. So here in this picture, I have made this picture to make very simplified definition of the different types of plastic. The plastic are derived from the natural or organic materials such as biomass, cellulose and lignocellulose, and natural gas, salt, and of course, crude oil, like fossil fuel and energy that we all know, that coal, oil, and gases. So then here we have at present different types of plastic that define like bioplastic, and it's very confusing terms. When people say bioplastic, we assume, oh, it's a green, it can be biodegradable. No, but that's not true. The plastic could be made of biomass, but it's not supposed to be biodegradable or degradable. Plastic also could have been made of partially by the products, but they still call bioplastic due to the making process, because the infrastructure which have been used the same as petroplastic, but the material, the raw material, it is used as a biomass. So that also called like bioplastic here, like PBAT, PCL. So these plastic also contain petro products or fossil fuel product, but they consider bioplastic because they are biodegradable. But some of the bioplastic which contain the biomass, but they are not biodegradable, also called bioplastic. So here in the three types of plastic, they are supposed to be bioplastic, but some of them the biodegradable, some of them not. The petroplastic, that PE, PET, PP, those are purely made of fossil fuel and contain zero part of biomass, are called PE, PET. So this definition is very much important to understand for all of us to understand how the plastic works in our daily life and how from the origin to the end. So next, I have share here some of my research work I'm working on for a long time about how much plastic produced globally and how much part of bioplastic contained in the global. So here we can say more than 99% of plastic comes from fossil fuel, means petroplastic, means made from oil, gas, and coal. Only less than 1% of plastic here we can see is of biomass based, biodegradable, or we can say the product like agriculture, grain, or how to say in simple word, like the biomass is the very simple one. So this only less than 1% of plastic come from biomass. Among 1% also, like it is some of them biodegradable, some of them non-biodegradable. Here we can see that more than 55% or 54% is biodegradable, but 46% is not. It means they are made partially of biomass product, but in a way they have been created with the help of petrochemical infrastructure that they are not degradable. So here this picture shows us how the different continent contributing to the production and different types of plastic how end up. My talk is about alternative. So I also have created these slides to let the scientist or researcher understand, because when we talk about bioplastic, some of them they say, oh, bioplastic come from the agricultural products. That's not sustainable because a lot of people, they don't have food for eating. How can we make plastic from the food? And also some scientists, they argue that the land is the big problem. How are we going to produce a lot of food or resources for bioplastic? Plastic production, that I will say later how much economy are involved in making current plastic process. So here if we have compared from all the global arable land to arable agricultural land, and then 10% of like arable land, and from then it goes to biofuel. This part, if we look here, biofuels one, no one talk about land other thing. But most of the country are encouraging, giving incentive and subsidies to produce more biofuels. The bioplastic also come from the same process, same infrastructure required for, just like for petroplastic, the bioplastic also come from here, but that is supported by the government, and also most of the population, they think biofuel is very much important as compared to petroplastic. But bioplastic is not very famous till now, and also a lot of people, they are not aware of how they are produced and how sustainable and how good alternative to the petroplastic. So currently it's not like it's not non-existed, it's still there's like more than 2 million tons of plastic have been produced in 2019. Most of them come from Asia, and Asia, most of them come from China, then Latin America, Europe, or Europe is working on very aggressively on producing bioplastic. They are changing rules, and they are doing heavily on research to switch from petrol to bio-based plastic. So that was just like the global scenario. And then this slide letting you know in very simple way, because of course I talk about so many things, how it made it. I think it might be confusing for students. So here I have made very simple figure to understand how plastic are made and how they get recycled. So here the first one, when this first chemical formula when you use the crude oil, this is the petroplastic. The plastic come from oil, gas, and coal. The lignocellulose plastic, this plastic are mixed, few percent of biomass, some percent of petroplastic. It's like mixed plastic, or in scientific term is called drop-in plastic. This plastic contains some part of the petroplastic. The reason is because making this plastic is much more sustainable than making 100% biodegradable, because making this mixed plastic can utilize all the infrastructure that are used for petroplastic. That save a lot of money. And also sometimes they are not, sometimes it's biodegradable too. So making the mixed plastic can utilize the old infrastructure which was used for petroplastic, and here we can replace the fossil fuel raw material as biomass. That's the key. And the third picture is saying totally making bioplastic, making from D-glucose to PEF, this 100%. But this process is quite long and not very popular, and also under development, and probably more expensive too. So this is a big problem. But these are three types of plastic can be made: pure petroplastic, 100%, then some mix, drop-in, it's called drop-in bioplastic, and then the 100% bioplastic. After the plastic we use, then is end up in three types of, there is only three main types of treatment or recycling or transformation of the plastic. We can see a biological transformation. It requires bacteria or bioorganism. It takes CO2 and do biosynthesis and break down the monomer and biobuilding blocks of plastic, which at the initial stage how it have been made. Second is a chemical recycling. That's the most popular one, but that is not very sustainable because this require a lot of chemicals, energy, and also produce secondary waste. This third one, mechanical recycling, you might have heard, we all have heard. This recycling is the best one in this process. But the problem is plastic must be contamination free, means plastic must be not, it shouldn't be dirty or contaminated with other things, for example, the food or other dirts and soil. If we can collect the clean plastic, then we can mechanically recycle, and without much more complexity, just directly we can break down into polymer to monomer and make this the same product. But this recycling system can only work in the same product, like plastic bottle, the drinking water bottle we use. We can, if we collect the clean drinking water bottle, we can break down into monomer, and again it can be used for plastic, making the same product. So that's the best one. So this is the whole life cycle of plastic, how it's produced and how it end up in actual recycling. So that was all about plastic global scenario and how it has been made different types. Now I would like to share about my research in China, how working. Actually, in order to understand the plastic concern or plastic problem, or if you want to report to government or to suggest policymakers to do something, we have to do experiment, or we have to do modeling to analyze the plastic characteristic or plastic flow in a whole country. Means how much plastic have been produced, what are the parts are, what are the components, and how it have been flow from the beginning to the end. So this is my modeling here. I have done dynamic material flow to get to know all the flow of annual flow of plastic in China. It's like from resource to building blocks, different monomers that contain before making polymers. Here different types are, there's like 5 types of plastic polymers are majorly produced in China, almost 74%. Others are just like 26%. Then it goes for manufacturing, like different types of plastic are made, like films, woven goods, industrial goods. After making this manufacturing, then it goes for using purpose, where the plastic are consumed by use sector, like packaging, building and construction, automobile, like transportation, electronic goods, agriculture, and others. Then it goes to recycling, how end of life they manage well. So here depends on recycling other things. So in this work, I have only make the system boundary here from polymer to end of life to get the flow of whole how I have made in some detail account. This is we found in 2019 almost 122 million tons of plastic have been used. In that, almost 36 million tons of plastic have been imported from China. I mean, from the global, I mean, around the world to China, and then it have been exported again in the different stage. I mean, this stage is not very clearly defining which stage or what type of plastic have been exported, but it have been exported in two. That's why I have divided in two stages. First, after making the monomers or like plastic production, and after the furnace, means the product very much furnace or made, then this like 19 million tons. It means in the different stage. So here, what we got conclusion from this graph or from this work, like almost 41 million tons of plastic have been used in packaging, agriculture 8 million tons, building and construction 81 million tons, and other electronics and others. So almost 41%, more than 41% plastic goes to the packaging in China. It is, and within 1 year, almost 70% of that packaging plastic goes to the end of life. That's the big concern. The plastic goes to the building and construction, electronics, and automobile. It's not a big concern because the lifespan of that products are 10 years, 20 years, or 40 years. But the plastic, those are ending up within 1 year. That's the big concern. Also called single-use plastics. So this is what we found, that almost 40 plus % of the plastic goes to packaging, and that within 1 year is end up in end of life to go for landfilling, incineration, and other. So based on this analysis, we can suggest that government to which part need to be focused or which part need to be replaced by other material. So that can give a good output for managing plastic here. So after, and also here after we are also working on how much energy are consumed during making plastic, petroplastic. So here it's like estimated outcome of fossil feedstock energy used to make all the plastic globally and in China. The first graph is showing with the hydrocarbons like natural gases, coal, and oil, if combined three for making plastic, not whole the process, not processing, only as a raw material. Because this plastic are made from the fossil fuel, but it uses in two form, as a raw material and also the processing form. So any kind of techniques we use, we're going to use processing energy for every kind of, whether it's a bioplastic or electric plastic or petroplastic. But the petroplastic that we are currently using, it itself also take the raw material from the fossil fuel or hydrocarbon. That's a big concern. So if we can switch this conventional plastic, the current plastic, to the other bioplastic, we don't need to supply this our natural gases and means oil to making the plastic. That's a huge. So globally, it's if we remove the coal, because coal technique is not very good in economic reason. It consumes a lot of process and money. So not a lot of countries using coal to produce plastic, but most of the countries using oil and natural gases. So if we can remove the coal, it is showing 4.1% of the global oil consumption to make the plastic. That's a huge amount. If we look the data on Chinese side, it's almost 3 to 8% of the total Chinese oil or gas it was used in 2019 goes to the making plastic as a raw material. That's a huge amount. On consumption base, because China produces like 100 million tons, but they consume almost 130 million tons. If we calculate on consumption, it's almost more than 10% of the all oil and gas goes to the plastic production. That's a huge amount. And if we also include the processing energy, It means almost like 40 to 60% required energy for making the plastic. It's almost like 18 to 20% of all oil and gas used in China in 2019 goes to plastic production. That's a huge amount. And it goes to not only China, every country, those are using plastic, they are diverting their oil and gas to produce plastic. And if we say in Pakistan, let's say if Pakistan, all the oil, because in most of the Pakistan oil ten 100 liter of oil from the Middle East and paying money, that in that 100 liters 20 liter goes for making plastic. That's a big economic concern for the country, means any country. So the people need to understand how is plastic is not only a problem after the end of life, it is also a big problem before end of life. How our economy are consuming a lot of money, we are giving a lot of money for making the plastic. So this is energy and how it has been used. So what is the solution we can, so given the current production of the bioplastic, it is possible to replace all the petroplastic through different types of plastic, because most of the bioplastic are not suitable for every kind of current conventional plastic because of their strength, the chemical structure, and also their physical appearance. But if we can combine them, all the current productive means produced in bioplastic, it is possible to totally switch from the petroplastic. It may take time, but it is possible. It's not like in the 20 years back that saying it's not possible. It is possible. This is the old data we are working, and we have got that it is possible if we can combine them all. So then the next question comes, you might have, how sustainable are bioplastic if we're going to switch from the petroplastic to bioplastic? Yes, it is sustainable. This work is we have collected more than 70 or 100 study to find out how much bioplastic and petroplastic need non-renewable energy and also contributing to global house gas emission. So here we can see this green line is called petroplastic, means conventional plastic we are using it, and this green part are bioplastic. Here we have mentioned like first generation and second generation. Plastic are basically made of biomass, but the biomass also be concerned because of the agriculture food. But bioplastic can be made not only from the food. The food is like grain, like sugarcane or corn or wheat. It's called first generation based bioplastic. But we can also produce bioplastic from the agriculture waste, like wheat straw, corn straw, or all the cellulose material. Those are agriculture residue, not grain, not edible products. That's called second generation of, or wood. Wood also can use in the second generation. There is also third generation of plastic that is come from the algae or seafood or from the ocean water. So if we can, that is still under development. So if we can compare with these two with the petroplastic, it's almost 70 to 80% less non-renewable energy requirement, and also global warming impact here, CO2 emission is almost 2 times than the petroplastic. That's a huge. So this is the life cycle analysis result. It's not like some laboratory. So it's very convincing, because now international standard they use for life cycle analysis to compare between product to service or anything. So this is a very remarkable and good result. Okay, so that was a story about how to replace and how sustainable are both process. So here, how we going to end up? I think okay, I still have 2-3 minutes. So here to end up sustainable management of plastic, that's the key too. So here we can see in this graph I have collected from a lot of methods how to sustainably end. So the 0-1, if you say eliminate or not use, not produce plastic, then we still have 0. It's like the greenhouse gas emission for metric tons. No toxicity here, we have not included toxicity, only the greenhouse gas emission. But if we burn them openly, that is the most dangerous or bad one. It contributes the highest, even though the much worse than landfill. Landfill comes in the middle. If we take the plastic and landfill, means secure landfill, that's also much better than most of the process. So, but mechanical recycling or reuse and paper making, the waste plastic, these are the better than the landfilling. But still landfilling is much better than the country is doing, including developed to developing country. Incineration comes from the worst second after the open burning. Then compostable. This is very how to say, it's a very controversial topic to how to define, because it needs more time to define. But it's still, for composting is the best for bioplastic, but that require also infrastructure to come to compost. So that's another issue. So here, if we don't use all landfill but not go for burning or incineration. So last, what I support, I mean, what I'm convinced on my research to support. So I would support here. We all know that circular economy to take the material and end of life and take back and recycle them. That's a very popular word, and a lot of countries, they are utilizing the principle of circular economy. But here, if we can combine them, circular and bio-based economy, that would be very good for local economy. You might ask why. Look at here how we produce biofuel and bioplastic. We need the raw material, natural, like light, CO2, water. Agriculture, forestry, and agriculture we need for biomass production. Very simple term. This figure is very simple to understand how all the process work. There is no chemical, no much confusion. Then biomass goes for processing. It can go for bioenergy and biofuel, and also for all the chemical production. The petrochemical, the plastic is one of them among the petrochemicals. Petrochemical consume more than 10% of the global oil. So that's a big. But we can also produce most of the petrochemical from the bio-based economy too. We need processing. After the use of the product, it can go back to chemical material and organic recycling, go back again to the main production house. So we can also produce, and all the food, we don't need to include this food and feed like grain to our main things to share with the production. No, it can be after leftover production or overproduction can be used for production. So this is like a model of circular and bio-based economy. It has so many benefits for if I include, especially in South Asian country, those that have a lot of agricultural land, probably is bad for Europe and Japan, where there is no agricultural land a lot to produce. But some countries it's very good for, because we have a lot of agricultural land and we can produce. And also the second big concern is when we say composting, the bioplastic is not like we throw them and expect them to decompose within. The government need to provide a good infrastructure. So the conclusion is we have to collect them back properly. Collection is very much important, and as much as possible clean collection. We don't need, if we can manage to collect them clean without making dirty or some mixing up with it, that's the best. But still, production of overall, that our study that we are working, and we have compared more than 100 study and also did LCA, life cycle analysis, we found it is much better than petroplastic. We can save a lot of oil. That we also, our population also need to know that a lot of part of that oil goes to the production of plastic. Why? We can produce that plastic from biomaterial like biomass. Every year we waste a lot of agriculture waste, like how to say that, bhusa and agriculture, all the waste. Those are useful. And also, if the government can provide them subsidy or something, the farmers can produce more green product, right? They get more money, and that green product can.
Our college is also working on it. So maybe in box or later on we will talk to you regarding this, and we have some collaboration on this. Thank you. Say no.